The ArduinoTrack is slightly unorthodox in the way that it's programmed. It is programmed through the Arduino.cc programming environment, but there is a little bit of extra setup to handle it, as the bootloader is not installed onto the ArduinoTrack. To get started, the first thing we need to do is go download the firmware. Firmware can be found on the projecttraveler.org website, and if you go to the ArduinoTrack controller, there is a section for the firmware down about halfway through the page, and you want to go to the ArduinoTrack firmware. Usually I have the latest version of the ArduinoTrack software here, but to get the latest you always want to go to the GitHub repository. It's github.com/custom-ds/ArduinoTrack-firmware, and there you'll find the very latest builds as soon as they're published out of testing and published to the repository. From the ArduinoTrack firmware GitHub site, you'll want to come into this repository and download the zip. This is going to download all these files down to your desktop or to your downloads folder. Once you have that downloaded, you come in to the master folder, and there's a couple files that we need to grab. First of all, grab the boards.local.txt. We need to copy that, and we need to place that out into the Arduino files. These files are on C program files x86 /Arduino/hardware/Arduino/AVR. When you get to this folder, you should see a boards.txt. We don't want to replace that, but we're going to paste the new file, and it's going to ask if we want to provide permission to do this. It's going to ask if we want to paste this new file, boards.local.txt, out here. It did ask us if we wanted to give the administrator rights to do that, because the C program files directory is a protected area. They don't generally like you messing with those files, but this is the way that the Arduino IDE handles adding in extra boards. Now that this is there, the next step that we need to do is we need to decide if we're going to install the combined version, so that it runs everything off of a single ArduinoTrack Shield, or if we're going to install the modem onto the Shield, which would just basically turn this into a KISS-based modem. And in that case, we would use the ArduinoTrack firmware, and we would install it here. We're going to program this to run the combined mode. So inside this ArduinoTrack folder, I'm going to copy that off to the desktop. Inside this ArduinoTrack folder, the firmware for both the combined, as well as if you want to do if you want to do the split system, the Arduino track firmware is here, or the combined firmware is also in here. If you put the ArduinoTrack firmware here, then you need to install the modem firmware onto the Shield. And you can watch another video and it will show you the differences between those two modes of operation. We're going to do the combined. So when we open up this ArduinoTrack firmware, we find the standard Arduino INO file. Double click that, and you can see the files in here. This is firmware version 3.0.0, and there are two ways to do this. As I said, right now it's set up to do the ArduinoTrack combined. If we want to do just the standard firmware onto like an Uno, we would just comment that line out or delete that line, and then it would build it as if it was just an Arduino, and then we'd have to program the modem firmware onto the Shield. We're going to leave this alone, and we're going to put the combined onto the Shield. There's one step we need to do before that. We need to come up to File and Examples, and we need to take something such as an Arduino Uno, and we need to configure it to be the Arduino ISP. So go to File, Examples, Arduino ISP, Arduino ISP. It will open up a sample project. we need to verify that we are using the Arduino Uno and that we have the correct COM port selected. In this case, COM4 is that Uno. So once we have that, we're going to upload that to the programmer device, just like you normally would upload a sketch. You can see the lights are blinking, meaning that's being uploaded, and it's done. So now the Arduino Uno is now a programmer for the Shield. The next step, we will go back over to the ArduinoTrack firmware. Again, we're installing combined because this is defined as AT combined. We're going to plug this in. Being careful to get all the pins lined up. Once that's plugged in, we are going to go in the ArduinoTrack firmware. We're going to go to go to Tools, go to Board, and if our boards.local.txt file was installed correctly and we've restarted our Arduino after that, we should see an ArduinoTrack Shield listed as a new board. And from there, we're still communicating across COM4 because that's what the Arduino is. And we need to verify that the programmer is set as the Arduino as ISP. Once those conditions are met, we have this set. We go up to Sketch, and we're going to upload using Programmer. This is going to go out and it's going to compile the firmware. Because the defined AT combined is defined, it's going to load all of the configurations and code and source code to apply both the modem piece as well as combined with the Arduino, just the general tracking system, GPS parsing routines, things like that. It's going to combine those into one big firmware file, and it's going to load. And we can see we have some blink lights on the status LED on the Shield that indicates that it is programming this board. It's a fairly large firmware file for an Arduino, so it does take about a minute or so to do the full upload and verify. Okay, said it's done. So now we have the firmware applied for the combined onto the ArduinoTrack Shield. At this point, it is ready to be separated from the Arduino. And if we plug it in, we'll see we get a long, short, long on the status, and you can see the red push-to-talk light is coming on periodically. That indicates that the firmware is loaded, and the push-to-talk indicates that it is actually transmitting data. That is why it's important to always make sure you have an antenna plugged into the ArduinoTrack Shield whenever you have the power applied to it, because it does transmit periodically, and it is very hard on the transmitter finals to transmit without an antenna plugged in. That's all there is to applying the firmware. As I said, if you wanted to load the modem onto the Shield, you would download the file, or you would extract the file in the original zip. You would extract this ArduinoTrack modem. It also has an INO file. You would open that in the Arduino IDE, and you would program that to the Shield, just as we just did. Once that's complete, then you would unplug the Shield from it, and then you could go back and change this to do the separate by uncommenting that, or commenting out that line, and then you could apply that firmware to the same Uno that we just used as a programmer, and then once you made those back up, you would have the ArduinoTrack combined with the Shield as a complete unit. Those are your two modes of operation, and that's how you install the firmware. First of all, you download the latest firmware off the GitHub. Then you apply your boards.txt file into your C program files. you open up the Arduino and configure a host Arduino as an Arduino ISP. Once it's configured as a programmer, then you open up your ArduinoTrack firmware and decide if you want to do the ArduinoTrack combined or if you want to apply the modem. You plug those in and you go up to Sketch and program using Programmer, or upload using Programmer. That's how you update the firmware.